Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD bodybuilder, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about how many meals you should be eating per day to build muscle and lose fat. Now I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of the common bodybuilding notions that you need to be eating protein every 3 hours, 6 meals a day or more, and that this is because your body can't process more than 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal. So today we're going to be addressing those issues. Quick outline for today, we're going to talk about the research and the caveats associated with that research. We'll go over the pros and cons of a low and high frequency of meals. And we'll wrap up with my recommendation for the number of meals you should be eating each day to maximize muscle growth and fat loss. If that sounds good to you, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get right into it. Alright, so first I'm going to clear the air in saying that you can digest more than 20 to 25 grams of protein at a time. Now this concept gained popularity after some early studies showing that muscle protein synthesis was maximized after subjects were given a bolus of 20 to 25 grams of protein. Now a big caveat of this research was that subjects were just given whey supplements. And since these supplements are a very simple form of protein, the rate of absorption is much faster. Now whey protein has an absorption rate of about 10 grams per hour. So for these subjects, when they consume 20 grams of whey, it would be absorbed fully in about 2 hours. Now if you compare this to a cooked egg protein, that has an absorption of more like 3 grams per hour. So it would actually take you about 7 hours to digest an omelet containing that same 20 grams of protein. Digestion is slowed down even more when you consume meals that also contain carbohydrates, fats, and fiber. So remember that mixed meals will have a slower absorption. Now there are also some studies showing similar results in body composition when fasting protocols are utilized. In other words, having a very restricted feeding window. What this means is subjects would have consumed all of their protein in a short time window, and that protein was absorbed slowly over a longer period of time. Now I want to highlight a review paper by Brad Schoenfeld and Alan Aragon from 2018, where they suggested having 0.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per meal, spread over a minimum of 4 meals to reach 1.6 grams per kilo per day. I think this is a solid recommendation, and the paper does a good job of distilling the research. So if you want to dig into the actual studies, I'll link the paper for you below. Now you'll notice that their recommendation for total protein intake is a little lower than mine. This is like 0.7 grams per pound per day. As you know, my recommendation for total daily protein intake right now is 0.82 to 1.0 grams per pound per day. You could say that my range is a conservative recommendation. I want to emphasize that there are quite a few caveats to the protein research we have so far. First of all, as I mentioned before, we're not talking about actual mixed meals, which is what we're eating in the real world. Furthermore, a lot of these were very short-term studies. Subjects were just given boluses of straight protein over a time period in the range of hours, and it's uncertain as to whether these results will translate into the long-term time period that is actually required to build muscle. Next, a lot of these studies measure surrogates for muscle growth. Things like your total nitrogen balance. Measures like these can hint as to whether muscle growth is actually occurring, but we're not measuring actual changes in muscle size, which is what we want to see as bodybuilders. I also want to note that there are mixed results in the studies reviewed by this paper. In other words, not all the studies agreed with each other in terms of their conclusions. The message I'm trying to give you is that protein research is very tenuous, and it's very limited in the actual conclusions we can draw. Now what this boils down to is that meal timing is a gray area, and the exact frequency you choose is going to depend a lot on personal preference and practical limitations. So now let's go over some of the pros and cons of high versus low frequency of meals. Starting off with low frequency, I'm talking like 1 to 2 meals per day. In terms of advantages, this can help for some people in terms of restricting their overall calorie intake if their goal is to lose fat. This happens just because you have fewer meals to pack in all of those calories. Now in terms of cons, this may increase hunger when meals are spaced farther apart. There is a question that you could have suboptimal muscle protein synthesis if you don't have those amino acids available all the time. And in the specific case of intermittent fasting, you might have some social disturbance if you're not able to participate in social events because you're not eating at that time period. Now in terms of a high frequency of meals, like more than 6 meals per day, in terms of pros, this can help in terms of taking in more calories throughout the day if your goal is to bulk. In terms of cons, however, having so many meals throughout the day can be inconvenient to plan for. And from an efficiency standpoint, I personally think you should be trying to minimize the amount of stress associated with planning out your training and nutrition. Alright, so with that, I'm going to give you my recommendation, and based on the research we have right now, I would suggest eating 4 to 6 meals with roughly equal amounts of protein in each of them. Now, in terms of the lower limit, I do agree with Dr. Schoenfeld's recommendation of at least 4 meals per day. And in terms of the upper limit, I personally feel that more than 6 meals per day becomes cumbersome and inconvenient to plan for. If possible, you should try to spread your meals out evenly throughout the day, but I want to remind you that if you're eating mixed meals containing whole foods, the absorption rate is going to be quite slow. Your body's going to take a while to absorb all of that protein. So as long as you're spacing things out every 3 to 5 hours or so, you're going to be safe in terms of maximizing muscle growth. And I'll say that 4 meals a day really isn't that hard to hit. If you have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack containing protein before bed, you've covered all your bases. Lastly, I'll emphasize that you should be finding what works best for you. If you find that you do really well with 2 meals a day or 7 meals a day, stick with that. The research we have on protein timing right now really isn't that strong, and you're better off choosing something that you can stick to consistently and sustain over the long term. There are a lot of practical factors in terms of meal timing that depends on the person and also on their current body composition goals. For example, for some people, when they're trying to lose fat, eating less often will help them to restrict their calories overall. However, for some people, when they get really lean in extreme dieting states like contest prep, having infrequent meals makes them more hungry and it's harder to sustain. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit like and leave me a comment below. I'm really good about replying to every single one of my comments, so you'll definitely hear back from me. In particular, let me know how many times a day you personally eat. Comment of the week is by GamblerOrc3 on my last video on posture. Thanks, man. Appreciate the positivity, and it's always good to see thoughtful comments on my channel. Coming back to meal timing, if you're curious about really low frequencies of meals, check out my video on intermittent fasting, where I go more into depth about whether it actually works, if there are actual health benefits for it, and some practical applications. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.